Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is Haynes Hendrickson from Turnkey Intelligence. Thank you for spending time with us and logging into our webinar. We're expecting to have about 150 registrants on this webinar, so great turnout, as well as 3 fantastic speakers. So I have just a couple things to cover before we get to the meat of the webinar, which are our 3 great speakers. Our goal is to have this over in less than 45 minutes and have everybody back to work and back to their days. So thanks for coming along with us. Advance my slide. So just a couple of real quick housekeeping. Everybody except the presenters is on mute. So in order to submit questions, please, I believe on the right-hand side of your screen, you should have access to a questions pane. Please submit any questions there, and then we will field them to the respective presenters. All attendees to the webinar will receive a copy of the webinar after today's webinar. So keep your eye out for an email from us, and certainly follow up with us if you have any questions or the respective presenters. So here at Turnkey, the individuals up on your screen are the people that are putting on this webinar. Probably represent about 90% of the client base here at Turnkey Intelligence. And I just want to offer out to anybody that's attending, as well as across our client base, that if anybody has any needs, anybody has any just industry perspective that they are looking to get some questions answered, looking for help in connecting with some other people, we're more than happy to help. Just always feel free to reach out to us. We feel like we have a great representation across the industry of clients, and happy to connect people where it may benefit your business. So lastly here is, this I believe is our 11th webinar. We try to host them quarterly, and we try to put together a good variety of clients that we think are really leaders in the industry and doing some great things to help change the industry. In the past, we've had the NBA, AT&T, the New York Roadrunners, great performing arts client in Jujamcyn, the Mountain West Conference, Monumental, the Charlotte Hornets, Cal Berkeley, etc. So really appreciative of any of those clients that chose to spend some time and the effort in putting together a great presentation, and we're happy to help shine the spotlight on them because we think they're doing great things. With that being said, if anybody on this webinar ever has a topic, an individual, or a property that you think would be a great addition to a future webinar, we'd love to hear from you. So please don't be shy in sending along some suggestions. Okay, so now on to what you're all logged in to see here. We have 3 fantastic individuals. We're going to each speak about their own respective business and some cool things that they're doing. We're going to start with Michael Shear, Director of Business Strategy and Analytics at Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment. He's going to speak about using survey data for fan insights. Our second speaker is going to be Tim Martin, Senior Associate AD of Business Development at USC Athletics. Tim's going to be talking about the use of donor scoring models. And lastly, Jeff Miranda, Database and Sales Support Manager at the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's going to be talking about lead scoring and renewal campaigns. So we're going to kick it off with Michael. And Michael, we are going to hand over to you the controls of the presentation, and should be all set. And
great.
Take yourself off of me. Yeah, there you go, Michael.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Thanks for that introduction. So yeah, I'm going to touch base today on a couple different surveys that we're currently running out. So first, we're going to start off with our post-event survey. So our post-event survey is deployed after each of our events, whether it's you know, an arena event or one of the team's games. You know, when we first rolled this out, it would go out to our ticket buyers. That's all we knew of, right? Obviously, through our Ticketmaster platform. As we incorporated a Wi-Fi gating system into the building, probably about 1.5 years old now, It allows us to ascertain the email addresses of those that might not necessarily be the ticket buyers, right? So you're talking about guests of season ticket holders, secondary buyers, things of that nature. They also get the survey at this point. So it multiplied our distribution base and allowed us to gain some extra data points there. As we go through this presentation, I'm going to talk about the different categories and silos that we hit in terms of questions that get answered on this survey and how that helps a multitude of different departments. And also, what information we relay to those key stakeholders in terms of the variables that we gather. All right, with a couple of examples. So just I wanted to move forward and show an example of what the survey looks like for both of the teams in this case. So on the left-hand side, you have what our typical Islanders survey will look like as you're going through the screens. On the right, you have what our Nets, whatever the tagline we were using last year, would look like. We try to keep these on brand when they get sent out and when people are taking them. And in this one example, I wanted to demonstrate or illustrate rather the different categories that we ask, and we ask these year over year, and why we might do that, and how detailed we get in that, right? So, for example, we ask friendliness of the staff there. A lot of effort was put in when we opened the building to train our staff, everyone from ushers to front office to concessions personnel, with our Disney training and the Disney Institute, and really make sure that we are, always practicing that as a best practice, being friendly and things like that. So we monitor that through our guest experience and post-event surveys to see, are we trending, are we leveling off, do we need to retrain, things like that. So those are important to our executives. Same thing with food and beverage. When we ask that, anyone that does not meet expectations there, they get prompted to see, was it a certain stand and why? Was it wait time? Was it price? Was it the quality of the foods? Then we can drill down and give that information over to our concessionaire and concessions provider and say, well, we might have an issue here, or this is doing well, things of that nature. It also gives insight into the demographics of the fans. So our upper level patrons more susceptible to price increases because they're more likely to bring it up on a survey versus those that are in the lower level and paying more for a ticket, things of that nature. Commute. We worked very extensively with the LIRR, with the Islanders coming over into Brooklyn, and what we were seeing right from the get-go was the Long Island population that was taking the survey had much lower commute scores versus everyone else, right? So we were able to use that as ammunition to talk to the LIRR and help vary schedules and add additional trains, things like that. And then over the course of time, you would see that commute score for the Long Island base go up towards the end of the season, just because of those changes that were being made. So it was very actionable and practical to show those examples after the fact. And for our executive team and our commute team over at the arena, the data was invaluable at that point, right? And then on that Nets example, what we want to show, we constantly get asked, what's our secondary, what does that look like? Can we ascertain what penetration a certain vendor has, or in this case, like a StubHub versus a Ticketmaster? So it's very directional, but again, we ask that kind of question. So we try to use the post-event survey to gain insight that we might not know of. At one point we were doing some analysis on the ethnicity of our buyer and Brooklyn and what's that population like and things like that. So before we had the live analytics suite of variables through Ticketmaster and things of that nature, we asked the question, what heritage night would be most appealing to you? And then based on those choices, we were able to say, oh, this ethnicity really popped to the top, and that's interesting, and maybe we can do something and do some engagement around that and things of that nature. So again, that helped our game presentation, and you saw those scores go up concurrently. I think I skipped a slide here. So this is an example of some of the decks that we put together to recap everything at the, we do it at the quarterly mark and then at the end of the season. So in that transportation example, on the net side, very different than the Islanders, right? You see heavy subway traffic versus the Long Island Railroad. But we also work with the MTA on trains and scheduling and things like that. So we can say, look, we can anticipate based on our run-up of sales and theoretically our anticipated drop rate, we could almost back into a number that we might need to add trains or things of that nature. If we know 50% of the building is coming in on a train, those are the most likely lines that they're taking. We ask, to and fro, right? And based on the attendance that we're going to expect, please be aware of it, things of that nature. So we work very closely with them. And as I mentioned in the prior slide about trending year over year and experience scores by residents, this is an example from the Islanders, and you can see that commute score being drastically different than Brooklyn and all other geographies there. You would hope it would be fairly even, and when things are different, it's a cause to investigate further. Commute really drove the overall scores down on the Islander side there, but the staff, like I said, should be consistent, and that was something that was viewed favorably by those fans. Okay. So next, we'll talk about the survey that we're developing for our human resources and internal staff assessment here. So some background on that is, our team here, the analytics department, was challenged with how do we revamp our review process to incorporate other variables besides just our employees that are directly tied to ticket sales, right? That's very black and white number, things of that nature, right? But what about someone else that's having an impact here in the organization that doesn't have to meet a sales quota, right? And how do we do that? So we developed what we dubbed the sphere of influence survey, right? Who's having an impact here that might not necessarily be tied to sales? So, for example, we look at a bunch of various different data points, right? What is their level? Are they an assistant? Are they a manager, director, vice president? What department are they in? How long have they been here? And what are their peers or supervisors or even, people that are under them rating them on a, above meets or below expectations kind of scale. So what we're trying to see there is, let's say someone is an analyst, for example, but executives, vice presidents and above are rating them, and they've indicated via the survey that they deal almost every day with that person. And they also have a positive rating. To me, that says that person might be a rising star because they have that level of communication with many different departments outside of their own, so they're seen as someone that's a go-to person and reliable. And they also, executives know who they are rather early in their career. So they're already getting that level of exposure. We also ask unaided recall type questions, right? So one of the first pages on that survey is, off the top of your head, name 3 employees that come to mind that exhibit Brooklyn's best behavior, which is our tagline for a lot of HR things. And then we would divide the number of times someone shows up in those unaided recall by all the unique names that appeared in recall. We can say, well, Mike Shear, 25% of the time, he comes to every employee's mind of, someone that's exhibiting Brooklyn's best behavior. We should look into that, right? We also, people that are voted above or below, whatever, we ask them to just fill in any keyword that they can think of that, why did you rate that person in 1 or 2 words, and we do some natural language processing on that and develop some word clouds that say, well, of the people that think Mike does not meet expectations, here are the common terms being used for him, and vice versa, right? People that think he's very good, what are those words, right? And can we use that for coaching purposes, okay? So a couple, I just moved the slide forward. This is what that looks like practically, all right? So we ask, who in your department, who outside of your department, so we can say, who's working and intermingling with various departments. And on the right, like I said, those 2 words, excelling in performance, things like that. And how do we aggregate that at the whole and at the person level? We can bubble this up by a department, look at things like sentiment, things like that. So very interesting stuff. We're just scratching the surface with it now. We're going to go live with it hopefully over the next month and start really analyzing some of this data. But I think it's pretty new, pretty unique to tackle this situation. So I'm glad that Turnkey was able to support us with the software to do so. And I think with that, I am we'll field any questions.
All right, Mike, fantastic. I love the employee surveys, and we certainly see more of our clients doing that. We also see some clients taking that a little step as well. We have one pro sports team that surveys their players across professional and minor league systems. So it's really cool to use it as an internal resource. All right, so quickly, a couple quick questions for you. First, in the different categories that you measure for the fan experience, at what point does a dip in scores cause you to take action? Is there a certain threshold that you allow before you raise a red flag?
No, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a threshold. It's just we're constantly monitoring, right? So we would love to see everything be sky high and be fives across the board. I think you have to take into account the fact that the people that are filling out the survey, people are more likely, just in general, human nature, to tell you they had a bad time versus a good time. So we try to at least monitor this to make sure everything is a 3 and above. I mean, we get that. But what we also do is combine this with a bunch of other different fan sentiment processes, okay? So in conjunction with our surveys, we, and my team and some of the folks at the arena, do fan intercepts during the games and during events where we'll actually walk around and ask similar type questions, a lot lighter than our post-event survey. We just walk around with an iPad, and those are usually much higher than this survey, which tells us that this is kind of skewed down. It's still fair because it's a pretty robust sample set, but when you talk to people face-to-face, it's, I think, a little bit more of an honest slice, or they don't want to tell us exactly how they feel, but this is Brooklyn, so I assume that they would. And we also have, secret shopping come in. We partner with Teambo at the league. So if all of that were negative, that'd be a much larger cause for concern than anything on this post-event survey. But we do want to ensure that everything is meeting expectations or above, and we look at it in relation to other categories, right? So that commute, obviously, we knew right away. That also came up in our fan focus groups that we do quarterly and throughout the year with our season ticket holders. It helps with a graphical representation of that, of what's going on.
All right. One last quick question to throw past you is similarities in the fan profiles across the multiple events that you monitor. Mm-hmm. Do you see any trends?
Yeah, it is very disparate by event, okay? And even on the team side, hockey tends to be much more male-dominated, much less demographically diverse, I guess you could say. There are certain variables that always pop to the top, and that's a combination of, who's buying tickets and the fact that we have a large Nassau County out in Long Island base coming for Islanders games versus the Nets. And we have such a disparity of concerts coming in. Are the buyers of, Barbra Streisand much different than, another show that we might have, right? Guaranteed. What is interesting, though, are the people that fill out the surveys. We run the demographic profiles on those based on the questions that we're asking, right? Whether it's zip and age and whatever. They look very closely to the ticket buyers, which is great. However, the ticket buyers for all of our disparate events look different for the most part. However, there is a certain portion of fans that overlap across both teams and some events and teams, and again, that really varies on a bunch of different factors, okay? It's geography, and it's also, is it a business versus a personal expense, meaning on the two-team side, and where are they sitting? So I think that's a whole other conversation, but yes, there are some similarities, but there are also many differences.
Great. All right, there's other questions that, in the interest of time, we will follow up with them individually and perhaps even connect Mike, you with them directly. But we'll keep going. Mike, thanks so much. Tim, we're going to switch over assigning the controls for your presentation. So everybody, this is going to be the one and only Tim Martin from USC. And Tim, I believe you can advance the slides from here. And take yourself off mute. Yeah.
I'm off mute. I'm just trying to advance the slides.
There you go.
There we go. We got it. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for that fantastic introduction, Haynes. I appreciate that. We're going to talk today a little bit about our donor process here at USC. So In addition to utilizing the prospector tool that Turnkey provides to indicate the likelihood for people to buy tickets in the sort of traditional sense of how that model works, we've also this past year embarked on sort of the journey to help us solicit and sell and be more effective from a fundraising perspective. So to give it a background on that, every single year, in addition to selling out, the Coliseum 6 to 7 times a year here in Los Angeles, we need to raise about $20 million to fund the athletic scholarships for our almost 700 student athletes on campus that represent us here at USC. Anecdotally, as well as through survey data from Turnkey, we know that the college fan and the USC fan is no different, is getting older. So our demographic skews older, and we are challenged finding new donors, that sort of young blood to come in and replace an aging donor base as they age out for us. Traditionally, we've relied on referrals, inbound inquiries, and really it's been an event-driven process to get us to that $20 million mark. And we've quickly realized that we needed that we need to sort of flip that rather antiquated model on its head and be more proactive in finding new donors. So the first step, as you can see from the slide here, was to simply analyze our current donor base, and so we created both priority and capacity models through the Turnkey prospector tool. So their likelihood to donate as well as their capacity to donate, or a person's capacity to donate. This was a fantastic exercise, and as you can see from the results here, the most important thing before we put the models into place to identify potential new donors was to prove that the models worked, and I think you can see here that they absolutely did. So we noticed that donors with 4- and 5-star capacity scores provided over 50% of our total annual revenue, and then you can see there that the 5-star leads more than doubled the total average donation. So we were looking at the data in the right way, and we felt confident that moving forward we were going to be able to use this information not only to find new donors, but to make sure that we were pitching them the right annual donation amount. And to put that in perspective, we have donation giving levels that start at $200 and range up to $30,000. That's annually. And there are some benefits that come along with those. Probably the most important to people is location, yard line of season tickets for the football program here. So that was step number one. Moving on, one of the unique things I think about college athletics is that we have a nationwide and national fan base of alumni in particular that can't necessarily buy season tickets. So we have a very large base in Northern California, but beyond that we have a lot of alumni that live around the rest of the country. So I'm actually going to skip down to sort of the larger bullet point number 2. This past year we sampled some data, a couple of events. We did one event out in the Greenwich, Connecticut area, and we looked at our data warehouse. We pulled out folks that live in that area. We ran them through the scoring models and then invited them to an event that was hosted at a house of one of our key donors now that lives in that area. And simply as a result of that, we generated $25,000 in new donation revenue from that. Similarly, when we played Arizona State last year down in Phoenix, we hosted a similar event that was out in the Paradise Valley, Scottsdale area, and we simply ran the same sort of program, so to speak, where we invited people out to that. This year, looking forward, we have a couple of events in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. First and foremost, there's the big annual college convention coming up. next week down there. And we are taking our head coach, Clay Helton. We're doing some stuff down there because later in September, we open the football season against Alabama. So we looked in our data warehouse, combination of all of the data sets that you see there. We have 2,800 people that live down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that have some connection to USC. So what do we do with those? First of all, we need, what we did was basically run them through the two scoring models that we have, and we realized quickly that we can whittle that 2,800 down to 600 donors. So we have two events. One is a sort of a more open market event there next week, and then one is a closed door event. So we are being extremely selective in our closed door event on who we're going to invite. We have opened up the other event to the 600 and change people that you see there represented from those high 4- and 5-star leads. Results to be determined, but we're excited about the potential results that we're going to see with that. And then when we go down in September to play Alabama, obviously we'll do more events and we'll replicate this. So we're excited about what this has been able to do for us in identifying new segments and targeting the right kind of people that we want to invite to these events that we host. Next, obviously we have a lot of season ticket holders that aren't current donors. So for us, it represents about 12,500 accounts out of about 17,000 total accounts that are general season ticket holders but don't donate on an annual basis. As you can see from this, again, anecdotally, I think we realized we had a lot of potential there for people to donate, and we just weren't sure where to start when you've got 12,000 folks and limited resources, as we tend to have in college athletics. So we needed to narrow that segment down, and as you can see, that we've ended up narrowing it down to a total of about 950 donors that, in terms of their priority, likelihood to donate, rank as 4- and 5-star prospects, and then their capacity to donate rank as 3 to 5-star, excuse me, in that range. That's an ongoing initiative for us at this time. Results to date, as you can see, are encouraging. So we are, a tenth of the way through that list, pledged $47,000 in new revenue. I think we're just scratching the surface here. The next steps for us, as we sort of reach the end of our quote-unquote signing period, where we do a lot of, when we sign a lot of new people up for the Trojan Athletic Fund, is to really look at the fall, and fall camp begins beginning of August, running into football season, and honing in on those remaining 800 to 900 accounts to invite them out to regional Trojan Club events, invite them to fall prospecting events, and conducting in-seat visits throughout the 2016 season. So we're really excited about what this has been able to do for us, and we look forward to iterating and refining this and making it more successful as we go. That's the end for me.
That's great. Tim, thank you. And two quick questions to throw past you before we hand it over to Jeff. One question was asking about your data warehouse solution. If you could talk a little bit about who you're using and anything you want to add to that piece of it.
Yeah, so specific to the data warehouse, correct?
Yes.
We use SSB, so I'm sure that's very familiar to you. We've worked very hard over the last few years, really, to do that. And at this to date, we're bringing in a lot of data. So all of our ticketing data, all of our fundraising data, including stuff from Central Campus, which is fantastic. So we get some wealth screening information from Central Advancement here at USC. Our CRM data, our app data, merchandise, some social media feeds are going in as well. Gosh, I'm trying to think, but I think at the college level, what we've sort of realized is it's great to have all this data, but what the heck are we going to do with it? And so we've had to sort of break that off into chunks, and this was one of those chunks that we thought that we could immediately get our teeth into and see some immediate results. Hopefully,
all right.
Yeah.
And last question, I know I've heard this question asked on the ticketing side before, but do you inform your development people of a prospect score before they reach out to them?
We do. It's all rolled into our Salesforce CRM solution. So we have that automated feed from Turnkey that goes through SSB, and then we have a Turnkey intelligence section within Salesforce, our CRM solution, that lists all of the scores, so both the ticketing one and the donor ones, as well as other key information, the Personics clusters, net worth, disposable income, just a few. We picked a few of the key Axiom data points that we thought most important to us. And so that's all in there, and then we have that rolling into a dashboard. So for us, it's all automated. I think that's the only way to go, and it's proven successful thus far.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Tim.
Thank you.
We will switch over now to Jeff from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Jeff, in a second, you should have control of the slides, and take it away.
Thanks, Haynes, and thanks, Michael and Tim. Great presentations and a lot of great information. Really excited to share with you some things that we're doing with our priority scoring, with our demographic data, and then with some of our retention models from Turnkey. So started off here, some things that we're doing right now is really looking at our single game purchasers and utilizing the Turnkey priority scoring to help convert our single game purchasers into potential mini pack, group, or season ticket members. Some things that we do, first of all, in-game visits. What we'll do here is the week leading up to each game, we'll go and score all of our local single game purchasers, and we'll take the top 50 to 150 single game purchasers in terms of priority scores, and we'll have our sales reps call them and basically just kind of give them a call a few days before the game, introduce ourselves, make sure they've got all their accommodations that they need, parking, how to get to the game, all that good stuff, and really try to set up a meeting during the game. So we can meet with them, again, just kind of build that relationship and make sure they're enjoying their game day experience day of. And then we'll follow up the day after as well to, again, just thank them for coming out, really make sure they had a good time, enjoyable game day experience, and then, see if we can work with them on, any future purchases. A lot of the times for these in-season, contacts that we have with our single game purchasers, it will lead to some mini pack purchases. So for us, we sell 3 and 4 game packs. So somebody that buys, a single game ticket with us, that may be their first experience with us. They enjoy themselves, and then they want to check out, a couple more games or the remaining, 3 or 4 games that we have on our schedule. So a lot of times our in-season, high-scored contacts will really lead and convert to a lot of mini pack purchases for us. We do a similar thing out of season. We build campaigns around our top scored single game purchasers, and you can see some data at the bottom of this slide. We've really had some good success, building some additional revenue off of our single game purchasers utilizing the Turnkey data and really focusing in on the highest scored single game purchasers. So in 2014, we were able to capture just over 130,000 additional dollars in revenue from our single game purchasers. So this is any revenue that comes in after their initial single game purchase. Last year we were able to increase that to just under $200,000, and then already this year, really focusing in on those high scored purchasers from last season, as well as being even more proactive and calling our single game purchasers for this year. We've already captured just over $170,000 in additional revenue this year, and we're on pace to surpass last year's revenue. So that's one thing that we're doing, and utilizing our priority scoring. Very similarly, with our season ticket members, we have a seat visit campaign there as well, and it's really a two-part process. We try to focus in on our season ticket members that have been here, less than 5 years, and those that have a priority score or a retention score of 3 or less, and those really go hand in hand. If somebody's been here for 15, 20 years, naturally they're going to have a pretty high retention score. So, what we've found is that once we can get a season ticket member to the point where they've had their season tickets with us for 4+ years, the retention rate and percentage really goes up exponentially for that group. So, the whole goal of this campaign is to really, take those season ticket members and those that have been here for less than 4 years and get them to that 4- and 5-year mark, and really be more proactive with reaching out to that base. So, we'll first pull all of our season ticket members that have been here for less than 4 years, and then we'll look at those that have a score typically of 2 and 3. What we come to find is there's a very small percentage of season ticket members that have a score of 1, and a lot of the reasons that they would have that score is that they're just not coming to the games for whatever reason. So, a lot of times trying to, set up some type of in-seat visit with them is not going to happen. So we're really focusing on our season ticket members with a score of 2 and 3, what we would consider to be our fence sitters heading into the following season. We found that those with a score of 4 and 5 are basically renewing above 90%. So if we can really capture those that are renewing in the 75 to 90% range, those are the people we really want to be in touch with the most. So, we'll call these again week of, make sure they're going to be at the game, and then we'll set up a meeting during the game, and we'll just give them a thank you card and a small gift, just something to, make them feel appreciated and let them know that we appreciate their support. And what we've found is that, the people that we visit compared to accounts with similar scores, those people that we're visiting are renewing at a slightly higher percentage. So, it is being effective in that sense, and we're seeing some good results there over the past couple years. It's also very important to us that we utilize the demographic data that we get from Turnkey to move our business. So, one big question that we have is, every year in our renewal campaign for season tickets, we inevitably get some who are just undecided, for various reasons, or those who are unable to contact. Year over year, the greatest reason for non-renewals is just unable to contact. So there are people that have really kind of made their decision, hey, I'm not going to get Jaguars tickets the following year, and just being able to get a hold of them to understand why they're planning on not renewing it is valuable information to us. So, we're really trying to think through some ways that we can use demographic data to get in front of these sectors of our season ticket members. So, we've done a few different things for those people who are undecided and who we've just been unable to contact either over the phone or via email. One thing that we've done is looking at all of our non-renewed season ticket members that, they have kids, they're married, and we've started to do some cookies and cookie and cake deliveries. We'll have our mascot, Jacksonville, show up at their house, deliver, a cake. We'll have the players go out there, and we've seen some really, really great results from that. A season ticket member that we haven't been able to get in touch with 5, 6, 7 calls. It's funny how we deliver a cake and all of a sudden we're able to get in touch with them the next day. We've had some really cool stories there of, being able to finally get in touch with that season ticket member the next day after we deliver a cake. They renew right on the spot when we give them a call and say, hey, once Jacksonville, showed up at my house and I saw the look on my kids' faces, the smiles as we got that cake, how can I not renew? So we've had some really good success stories, utilizing the Turnkey demographic data there. We'll also offer some, free membership for our Jaguars Cub Club to families. For those with a with a lower discretionary income, they may not necessarily tell us that that's their reason for not renewing, but we can reach out to them proactively and offer some discounted concessions or merchandise options for the upcoming season. And we've had some good results there, utilizing that to get some season ticket members back. And then for our women's season ticket members, we can utilize that information. We have some exclusive women's events throughout the year. we have a Meet Me at the 50 event, and we'll offer that out to our non-renewed women's season ticket members and see if that can help drive some business there as well. So utilizing the demographic data that we have available to us has been a big driver for us as well. And then lastly, here is really using lead scoring to determine our next steps. And I would say one of the best things that we've done as a marketing and ticketing team over the last few years is really require registration for any and all events that we host. So if it's a draft party or if it's training camp, we will have everybody go to our website and register for that event. And when we ask them to register, we make sure we get all the contact information that we need to score them. So we'll get name, address, email, phone number. So that's great for a few different reasons. And then once they register, then they get a barcoded ticket for that event, and then we scan in that ticket for whatever event it is. So we're able to score them, which is great. We're able to know who's coming to the event, and out of those people, are they current season ticket members, are they non-renewed season ticket members, or are they just people that are brand new to our database that we haven't interacted with before? And then the barcoded ticket as well really helps us to determine who's coming to that event, and we can follow up with them in a different way after the event as well if they came to that event. So what we'll do with those scores once we have them is we really have a few different channels that will go depending on the score that was returned to us. Our 5-star leads are basically gold to us. Typically for any given list of leads that we get from an event, about 7 to 8% are returned with a score of 5. So a very low percentage of people return with that high score. But out of our new season ticket members so far this year, 35% of those have been 5-star. So if you kind of put those two together, only about 7 to 8% of all of our leads that we're acquiring are 5-stars. Yet 35% of our new purchasers are those. So what that's telling us is we're not getting a whole lot of those for any given list, but a large percentage of those that we do get are converting to being a purchaser for us. So those have a different criteria, right? There's a minimum amount of calls every time we get a 5-star. Those are going to be invited to different premium events that we have. We really try to treat those in a different manner than we would maybe a 1-star. Our 2 through 4 stars in terms of priority scores are really all similar. The majority of leads that we get have a priority score of either 2 or 3. So that's why you kind of see a slightly higher percentage of our season ticket member base there. But those are all pretty similar. So we'll make sure with those 3 categories that those are loaded in for our sales staff to contact. We call them a certain amount of times, and we have a plan moving forward for those. And then really all of our leads that come back with a priority score of 1, you can see there, there's a reason that they're a 1. They look the least like our current purchasers. Only 6% of our new purchasers this year come from a priority score of 1. So really with those, we won't necessarily load those in for calls. What we'll do with those is we'll make sure that those get into our database, and we'll make sure that they start getting our marketing initiatives, our promotions, things like that. And then those will actually, we'll track their engagement. So we'll track to see if they're viewing our emails. We'll track to see if they're going on to our website. And then, eventually, once they open a certain number of emails and once they go to our website a certain amount of times, we have what we call a hot lead dashboard, and those fans will then come over to the hot lead dashboard. So that's what kind of prompts us to let us know that, hey, even though this was a low score, their engagement level tells us that we should go ahead and contact them now by, have a sales member contact them and see if they're interested in buying. So we're really able to, utilize, a lot of these resources that we have from Turnkey to, drive our business in ways that we were, nowhere even, close to doing before we were, getting these scores and these retention models and things like that. So it's been a proven, success for us. And that's really all I had today. If you have any questions.
Thanks, Jeff. That's great. I actually love the focus on lead generation where you, on any of the touch points, because that tends to generate some of the best leads. We had a question that you answered right there at the end regarding lead scoring, triggering any actions in your marketing automation system. So thanks for heading that one off for us. One other is, I guess with 8 games, do you find your seat campaign, does 8 games prove to be limiting in your seat campaign, your seat visit campaign, or is it actually good to only have 8 home games compared to a baseball team or an NBA team or an NHL club?
Yeah, I definitely think there's value in having 81 games or 41 games versus 8 or 9. So I think it's important that we make sure, it's even more important for us as an NFL team, with only having that amount of games, to really make sure that the seat visits that we're making are to the right people. So I think if you have, a 41 game schedule, or even baseball, you have a bigger schedule, you can probably at some point, reach out to maybe the majority of your season ticket members. But for us, with a season ticket base of 50,000, it's impossible to think that with our sales base of 20 to 30 people that we're able to reach out to everyone. So even more important to utilize the information that we have to make sure that we're reaching out to the right people during our games.
That's great. Thanks so much. For everybody attending, just a couple things to remind you of. This presentation will be shared with everybody. We will also, because you registered for this webinar, we will let you know of the next one. Again, we try to do them quarterly, so I would hope at the end of the summer, or maybe once we get it past Labor Day, we would have our next one. I'd like to thank so much Mike, Tim, and Jeff for taking time. There were some additional questions, so we will field them between the respective speaker and the person that fielded the question. But thank you again, everybody, for logging in. Thanks to the presenters, and hope everybody has a great start to your summer. We'll talk to you soon.